So there we go. I think we are on and live. I can see you guys. Can you see me?
Yes.
Hello, hello. Um, Great. I don't know what the weather's doing with you guys, but it has taken a turn.
Yeah.
It has taken a real turn today. So we'll just give a couple of minutes while we have people joining. Thank you for joining. We are really happy to have you guys. This is a really important topic for us, and hoping that you get some great tips and tricks for how to stay protected for yourself, for your family, and the companies that you work with. So we are going to start kicking off soon. Guys, where are we with that? Shall we get going?
We got a couple more coming in. Maybe just give it another minute.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of people just
absolutely.
joined in the last minute. Yeah.
Got a couple of housekeeping things we need to go through prior to starting anyway. How's your day going, guys? It's a good
Pretty
one,
good,
despite the
Good.
weather.
Yeah.
right? I was starting to get used to that little bit of sunshine that we got. So,
Yeah, not for long, right? Not for
right.
long.
Yeah.
Okay, so today this is all about unlocking your peace of mind. And this is what it's meant to be all about, giving you some tips and tricks to keep yourself secure, keep you peaceful, keep you not worried about what's happening to your legacy, and making sure that we are giving you some great advice to protect your legacy, and the legacy for your kids and their kids and so on. So I'm going to get going, guys. We're just going to start off with some housekeeping here. So if you have a question, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Hopefully everybody can find that. Feel free to ask questions throughout the course of this webinar. We will get to those questions at the end, so we won't miss anything. You can post those questions anonymously or not, but in any event, we will read out the questions anonymously regardless. If you have just general feedback and comments as we're going through, please use the chat. Farzon and Forrest are going to be monitoring that. For anybody wanting to have a copy of this recording, we are going to be sending that out to everyone who has registered within 48 hours. We also ask, please don't adjust your view. We have set it for you. And we think you'll get the best experience this way. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. You can just ignore completely. And there will be a little bit of audience participation where we will ask you to raise your hand, and you can see that button at the bottom there. All right. So let's start with meet your speakers. I'm Lou. I'm VP of Marketing and Operations at 182, and I've spent over 15 years now in the tech industry, mostly working with high growth companies to support their global expansion. I've worked with companies like Marin Software, Mixpanel, Cooper Software. You may have heard of a couple of those. And along the way, I developed a strong passion for cybersecurity awareness, which really what brought me to 182. And I've been with 182 for just over a year now. Also, I'd like to introduce you to Forrest Murray, who is our VP of Client Services, and he's been in the industry since '93. So you are a seasoned veteran. He discovered a real talent early on in his career for understanding how businesses work and finding ways to improve operations through technology. And so this problem-solving mindset has been the driving force throughout his career, particularly in cybersecurity, where he has a huge passion for helping people navigate the often confusing world of staying safe online. And last but definitely not least, Farzon Almaneih, our founder and CEO, and the mastermind and architect behind all of our technology. He has spent his career helping small and mid-sized businesses tackle the complex world of cybersecurity. Just a little bit about what we do. We specialize in cybersecurity, compliance, and managed IT services, mostly with a focus on industries like accounting, finance, and law firms. And those industries face some unique challenges, and we'll cover a couple of those. We have the intense pressure of tax seasons for CPAs and the need for airtight security in legal cases. So there's a lot to cover here. So Farzon, where do we start?
Right. So, cybersecurity can feel so overwhelming. People feel like just giving up. It seems like something only an expert in technology could navigate, and we just kind of feel at the mercy. Um, what can you do? What can an average person do? But before we get into that, I just want to promise you by the end of this presentation here, we're going to give you some real world things you can take home today that are easy to implement for anybody, and it'll make a massive difference in protecting your family and yourself and your businesses. Really simple, but yet effective things you can do. Yeah. So let's talk about what's happening, right? Um, we spend our lives, our careers building our businesses, our families, and the cyber criminals are targeting you. What once was only a concern of big businesses, now the focus is purely on small business and individuals. Imagine what that would be like being the victim of an attack. What would that mean to you, your coworkers, your business, and your family? The old days are gone, right, Forrest?
Yeah, absolutely. In the past, about a decade ago or so, what we were worried about in cybersecurity was, the script kiddies living in, grandma's basement. And, it's all about disruption, making something bounce across the screen.
Fame.
Yeah. It was about fame. It wasn't about cleaning out your bank account.
Yeah, exactly. These days, cybercrime is $1 trillion industry. It's run by real business people, be it they're evil business people, but they treat it like a business because there's the revenue to support it. Today, hacker organizations, we hear in the news about the various ones. It's a little bit misleading. The fact is, criminal organizations are a multi-level marketplace. Just like we run our businesses, they have vendors, they have customers, and they're working together to accomplish the goal, and they all get a piece of it.
Mhm.
Generally, there's about 5 to 7 criminal organizations who are part of one complete attack. For example, you got the people who write the code. You have the people who do the infiltration and espionage. A little interesting fact here is that most people think that, like the old days, if you get compromised, you're going to see a pop up, an error, or something like that, or your computer is going to feel slow. That's not the case these days. Their goal is to actually get into your computer and monitor you and everything you do for at least 90 days, right, Forrest?
Yep. And they sit on there, they watch what you're doing. They watch you log into your bank accounts. They watch, what vendor payments you're sending out, when's payroll running, when are you backing up? When do you get to work? When do you leave? By the time they're ready to actually do their attack, they know everything about you. They know exactly how much you can pay. They know exactly how to hit you the hardest.
Yeah, at your weakest moment.
And I think that's the thing, right, is that we think that it's sort of, hacking happens in the moment, but it doesn't anymore.
No,
It happens by them exercising a lot of patience and just waiting for that right time where you're at your most vulnerable and they have the most amount of data about you.
that's right. And these days with analytics, we've all seen it where you're shopping on Amazon for coffee maker, and suddenly in Facebook all you see is coffee maker advertisements. This information is getting to the criminal organizations too,
Yep.
and when they infiltrate you, they're able to create very complex, convincing attacks. So rolling back to the marketplace, you even have another group who runs the attack and another one who does a negotiation, and believe it or not, there's even technical support because, not everybody knows how to buy Bitcoin so they can get paid. The
Yep.
days where, 7 to 10 years ago, if you had a really good firewall, you had backups and a good antivirus, and making sure you're doing updates on your computer, you were doing cybersecurity. Those days are long gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a poll. I like this. So I can't see everybody. Maybe you guys can. And if you don't want to use your virtual hand, just run through this in your head. So everybody raise your hand, virtual or otherwise, if you have online accounts that store personal financial data. And Forrest and Father, I think you should play along, huh?
Mhm. Mhm.
So keep your hand raised if you have a password manager to store passwords, something like 1Password or equivalent. Keep your hand raised if you use multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication on absolutely everything. And I suspect there's probably some hands going down. Keep it up if you verify emails and texts before clicking on links or opening attachments. I'm going to guess there's a few more hands going down. And are you 100% confident that every business that you work with protects your personal data? Now, if your hand's still up, I'm glad to see Farzon, Forrest, me, we're all up. Be worrying at times otherwise. So if your hand is still up, congratulations. You might want to come and talk to us. We might have a job for you in cybersecurity, and you are definitely ahead of the game.
Come talk to me.
Yeah. And if it went down at any point, don't worry about it. That's what this webinar is all about today. And that's what we're here to help you with. So let's talk about the landscape a bit. I do love some stats. So we're going to do some stats here. Hopefully it's not going to scare the bejesus out of you, but they are important stats. So cybercrime costs the world 9 trillion annually. And those are figures from 2023. And I want to put this in perspective. Japan's total GDP last year was $6 trillion. Just to put that into perspective, $6 trillion. So there's big business here in cybercrime. There's a big piece of the pie to get if you're good at it. That cost is predicted to go even higher this year and reach somewhere near $10.5 trillion annually at some point. Over 3,000 data breach incidences occurred in 2023. And again, some perspective on the growth here, a 70% increase over 2 years. Almost half of employed individuals globally reported being victims of cyber attacks. And I want to point out, those are the people who were the people who reported it. That doesn't include the people who didn't. That number is likely to be much higher. And now we've got the AI factor. And, I don't need to point out the huge increases there, but the AI factor is driving incidences up even more, and it is by a massive amount. But there is some good news. 82% of data breaches are human error. Now, that doesn't sound like that might be a good news stat, but what that does mean is that we have the power, and we have the power to change some of those stats.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, obviously we're all connected these days. We live in a global world where digitally we all are interconnected. That really lends itself to be problematic in this scenario, right? So, you get that email, you click on that link. That link now, goes in, finds all your contacts, all your friends, your family, your coworkers, tries to reach out to them. Gets your data, any sort of information that you have about yourself, about others, now it's theirs, and they'll use that to formulate the next attack.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about being in a connected community is that, with one attack at one company, it affects all the vendors, all the clients, all the employees. It's just it's like dominoes. It keeps going.
Yeah. Example, let's say you're a family law firm and you have all kinds of sensitive information about the cases going on. Everything from pictures, medical records, kids' social security numbers, every single bank account, you name it. Attacking one family law firm would be a gold mine. Now, the attackers not only would, run a ransom against the law firm, but every single one of their customers are now a target. And some of
And there
those
was
customers are businesses too. And so
yeah,
those businesses might have like a QuickBooks file, and every single one of their customers is also in that database. It's a domino effect.
yeah. And there was the Move It company called Move It a few years back, who were infiltrated. They are a huge data file transfer company. And they were hacked, but they were not hacked directly. The hack came through one of their vendors who were not adequately secured, and it cost millions and affected thousands globally. So, it's not just about your company, it's about the people that you work
Mhm.
with.
Mhm.
Yep.
It,
Also your families.
yeah.
Also
Mm.
your families. Yeah.
Yep. And then it becomes a trust issue too. Once something has happened, people are going to question your ability to handle their sensitive information.
Mhm. Yeah. And
Trust
that,
is the foundation of a business, right? Your clients need to trust you.
yeah, and your friendships and your family. It's
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. So, how are they doing this now, right? So we've all heard of phishing. Phishing is still the primary method that people are launching attacks. We're still counting on that human error,
And
right?
I read some other things as well. It's which made me chuckle. It is phishing. There's now smishing, which is by SMS text. There's vishing, which is the voice, the fake voice. I mean, it's really starting to sound like names of a really bad boy band, right?
Right, right.
Also with AI, they're just getting incredibly crafty. You would think phishing would have been long gone, but now with AI, it's just the trickiness of it has become
Mhm.
incredible.
Yeah, it is. I've got a story I can share with everybody. It's a bit of a personal one, but about the vishing, if you will. So my stepsister went on vacation to Costa Rica, and she was excited about it. She was posting on Facebook, "I'm going on vacation. I'm on the plane. Here I am on the beach having my cocktail." And my stepfather back at home got a phone call, and the gentleman on the phone said, "We have your daughter, and unless you give us money, we're going to hurt her." And in the background, you could hear a girl crying and saying, "Please, daddy, they're going to hurt me." So, obviously this is intense, it's emotional, and he's on his way out the door. He's going to go to the bank. He's going to send them their money. Thankfully, my mom stopped him, saw that he was distraught, and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he told her, and she said, "Okay, well, hold on a second." She picked up her cell phone and calls my stepsister, who answered from her cabana on the beach in Costa Rica. All is fine. So, they that's a good example of, taking some social engineering. They were watching her on her social media, and they knew who, was close to her, important, and they knew how to pull at those heartstrings.
Whenever I think about that story, my stomach drops. It's
Yeah.
the worst nightmare you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. I can't even imagine getting that call with, one of my kids. That's
There's a key thing here, though. This is one of the greatest defenses every single one of us have in the cybersecurity landscape. Usually, when you're being asked to do something, stop. Well, actually, every single time you should stop and evaluate. But usually, there's another way of validating that information. In this case, picked up the phone, called directly to Forrest's sister, and it ends up being fake, right? Well, we've all gotten those emails or those weird texts. something from our bank and whatnot, don't click those. Don't
Right.
reply to those. Don't, if someone calls you, hang up and call your bank back on the number that's on the back of your credit card.
Yep.
That's the good number. And trust
Yep.
me, if they want to get a hold of you, if there's a concern, that person will be able to help you. But this is one of the greatest things you can do to not be part of one of these
hmm
scams.
Be
And I
careful.
think,
Be skeptical.
yeah, and I think trust your gut. You know, if it seems fishy, it probably is. And there are other ways of verifying. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, supply chain attacks. You guys have all probably heard about those. There's this is when one of your vendors or clients or somebody else is compromised, but they have ties into you, and that's how they get in. So if your bank is compromised, they're going to have access to your information, and potentially could even affect you through your login if they were to compromise that, right?
Yeah.
So, and these are the types of things that happen. So it's important to stay vigilant there.
Yep.
Insider threats. So these are one of the biggest risks, again, is the human factor, right? So we gotta be aware of the people that we are working with and trusting with our data. People need to slow down, be careful, right? Because yes, there are malicious people, right? There are, and unfortunately, companies occasionally hire those people and they go do bad things.
But it's really rare,
It's
extremely rare.
it's very rare.
But also human error from people who are great employees, but just don't have the cybersecurity awareness training, and something
That's
happens
it.
by accident, right?
That's
Yeah,
it right there.
that's it right there. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I got a question. I want to open this up to the to chat just to see if anybody can take a stab at really what the biggest threat is. And Farzon and Forrest, I know you'll keep an eye on the chat. If anybody has any ideas, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't know if anybody took a stab at that, but the biggest threat is actually complacency. Again, the human factor.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
won't
and
happen to me, right?
unfortunately, this is not a problem that goes away if we ignore it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about some personal cybersecurity best practices. And I got a bit of a, so it's kind of a joke, but and it's from one of my favorite British comedians. But when I heard it, it really hit home and resonated. And so I just want to share a little bit of the evolution of the password, and I think it's going to resonate with a few people. So in the beginning, when we started doing whatever we needed to do online, we needed to have passwords, and it was just, pick that special word only to you, and that's your special word. And we're gonna keep it British, and we're gonna use the word soccer for just for demonstration purposes. So that special password was fine for a while until the popularity of the internet started to skyrocket, and hackers started getting better at what they were doing. And the next time you logged in, you're being told your password is weak. And so now you need to have in your password at least one capital letter. And the world as a collective thought about this for a minute until we all decided to capitalize the first letter of our special word. And that was fine for a while again until the rise of the internet grew again, and hackers started getting better at what they were doing. And again, you were prompted to tell you that your password was now weak. And now you needed to have at least one capital letter and at least one number. And the world as a collective, once again, thought about all of their options and gathered on the number 1, which was placed at the end of your special word. This has got to be resonating with people. Um, and then we carry on, and this is fine for a while again. And now we're prompted not for just one capital letter, at least one number, but now you have to have a special symbol. And that just opened up a world of all kinds of options. And the world looked at all of these special symbols and collectively, and I know some people are going to preempt me here, settled on the exclamation mark, which was dropped on the end of your special word after the number one. Now, look, I mean, this is a funny story, but there is some truth to it. And why am I telling this story? Which is, as humans, we're predictable. And so the best way to avoid being hacked is to be unpredictable. And I just want to say that this password doesn't count either. Don't change your A's for ats. Don't change your I's for ones, your O's for zeros. These are all obvious changes that hackers are going to get into straight away. The only safe password is something that looks like this, which is kind of ridiculous to remember.
It's impossible. No
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I just
And-
want to say that I know some of you out there are still doing 1, 2, 3 exclamation point. So stop,
I'm
stop
wondering, wondering how many people have left to now go and change their passwords, right? And please do it, but do it after the webinar. And so look, it's crazy, and you need a different password that looks like this for everything that you are logging into. And we recommend that you use a password manager to do that. It can even generate passwords for you. We use 1Password a lot, but I know that there are other options out there. The other thing, and again, if this is one of two things that you take away today, it is this: enable two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication on absolutely everything that you do. If it is an option, use it. I know a lot of people already are, and just in case there's anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's imagine you have a card key for your hotel room. And if you lose that card key and somebody finds it, they can get into your room. But if you lose your card key, but you also have to put a pin to get into your room, doesn't matter if you lose your card key, they're not going to get in without the pin. So it's really just giving you an extra layer of security, normally a code that's sent to you by text or by email. We already spoke a little bit about email vigilance, being careful with links, being careful where it comes from. Make sure that you are practicing safe browsing habits. Please don't download anything from a site that looks dodgy. 9 times out of 10, it is. And keep your devices updated. I think this is probably the other big takeaway. It's frustrating. We work in IT every day and we're frustrated with the updates and the constant restarts and reboots, but it is one of the main ways to stay secure. Outdated software gives hackers an opportunity to find cracks in that armor and get in.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that I've been in IT a long time. Even I am annoyed by the level of updates that are happening right now.
Yeah.
Mm.
And when it happens, it's always the wrong time and it's always painful. I'm always in a hurry or I'm right in the middle of something important. But I know well enough that the time that I take to do that is way less time, way less painful, way less impactful than actually having an incident.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the biggest best practice is, again, we're coming back to that human factor again, ongoing education. Keep yourself aware of what's going on. Stay informed. And that is another way to make sure that you are protected and doing the things that you should be doing. Okay, hold on, let's move on to businesses.
Yeah, so, we can do as individuals, again, back to that connected community again. As individuals, we can do all the right things. But part of doing all the right things is also ensuring that the people that we work with are also doing the right thing. I mean, think about your attorney, your CPA, your real estate agents, all those people have a lot of information that is very valuable and it's yours. It's important to make sure that they're thinking about these things as well. Because you're not on an island.
No. And most of the businesses don't even have any cybersecurity whatsoever. Maybe an antivirus and a firewall at best. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's about so much more than that, right?
exactly.
Yep.
And with all that personal information, this is another reason why the phishing attacks are so clever these days. They are able to use that information against you
Yep.
in such a clever way that it's almost indistinguishable from something that's supposed to be real.
Mm,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
Right. Okay. So, we earlier we touched a little bit on the, this used to be an enterprise problem, but now it's an SMB problem. And there is a reason for that. And SMBs, a lot of them are not, they don't have a big IT budget. They're working with limited resources. They're trying to get by. They got old computers. They're not training their people. And for all these reasons, they are an easier target.
yeah.
Right?
I was in a call earlier this morning, and we were talking about cybersecurity with some small businesses. And someone asked me, "Is it okay if I'm running Windows 7?" And it hasn't been safe to run Windows 7 for, I think, 10 years.
Yeah.
It's like
Wow.
within 30 seconds of it being on the internet, it would probably be compromised. And there's
Yeah.
nothing you can install to protect it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
People
And
don't
how
know.
many people choose to work with smaller companies these days rather than the big ones? I think probably a lot of people. And for hackers and bad actors, they are absolutely more often than not the low-hanging fruit for these reasons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's why there's been such a shift, is that, the bad actors have figured out that they can, take down 10 SMBs, have it be just as profitable, but way easier than one larger company.
Yeah, they're easier targets. Why go after Fort Knox when, the person down the street has the door open?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
So, yeah. And so, I, part of my job here is I talk to a lot of different companies, and, often I get similar feedback. We're too small. The data that I have is not important. That's just for the big companies. Or, I have a firewall. My IT guy tells me that we're good. Or my favorite one, oh no, I've got Gmail and QuickBooks Online. They make sure everything's taken care
Yeah,
of.
cloud. Microsoft does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But the truth of that is that that's, these cloud providers, it's a shared responsibility scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can't just say, I'm signing up for Microsoft and now all my cybersecurity needs are taken care of. That's not it at all.
It's a complete opposite, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
What surprises a lot of people is that they don't even know that Microsoft and like Google don't even back up their data. There's no
Yeah.
backups, right? Let alone security automatically built in.
Yeah.
How often do you guys hear that we're too small to be on the radar? I bet all the time,
Every
right?
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty often.
And yeah, and that's just, hackers used to go after big businesses. I think it was, more towards the, fame, the days of fame. Nowadays, it's all about money. They can go after an easy target, figure out that they have $50,000 cash liquid that they can do, and that's all they ask for. And it takes them no time at all, and they can knock over 10 in a day. So for them, it's easier, faster, and it's a good payday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah. For those cloud instances, one of the analogies I like to share is, it's like, imagine that you're renting a locker in a public locker room. Okay. The facility is, they're going to be responsible for the physical locker that you put your stuff in, but I promise you, they aren't going to be responsible for the contents.
mm,
So, people need to think like that when they are engaging.
So now that we have thoroughly cheered everybody up with this landscape, should we do some more stats? You know I love my stats.
Yeah.
So small, medium-sized businesses, the all you can hack buffet. And you know, cybersecurity is expensive, but not as expensive as a data breach. And let's give you some stats here. So almost half of all cyber attacks are directed at SMBs. It's a huge amount, 1 in 2. Nearly 42% of SMBs experienced a cyber attack in the last year alone. Again, almost 1 in 2. This is a really important stat. For anybody on the call today, if you're a business owner, the average cost of a cyber attack for an SMB is around $3.3 million. That is a huge amount that most SMBs just can't come back from. And it's not just about the money. It then becomes about you know, the reputation to your brand, the loss in trust from your clients, etc. And all of that is much harder to get back.
And the liability.
And the liability, right. Over half of small businesses have no cybersecurity measures in place. That is an astonishing fact in today's market.
Yeah, remember that classic firewall antivirus, Microsoft patches? That doesn't count anymore. You still have to do it. Don't get me wrong. You still have to have that, but it doesn't count the cybersecurity.
Right.
And you'd be
Right.
surprised how many scenarios we roll into and we see that that's what they call cybersecurity. That's what they're doing. And they're wondering why something happened. Yeah.
So again, we're coming back to the human element here. Over half of small businesses did not train staff on cybersecurity measures in the past year. And I can't stress how important this is. You have to train your staff. You know, your cybersecurity measures are only as good as the people who are implementing and enforcing it. And to be able to do that adequately, you need to arm them with the knowledge that they need in order to be able to help you protect your business as well.
But even friends and family.
Right.
Even
Right.
friends and family. Yeah.
So nearly 40% of small businesses reported losing crucial data as a result of an attack. And that is probably company crippling at that point. And this is the stat that horrifies me the most. 60% of SMBs go out of business within 6 months after a cyber attack. That is a huge amount of people losing their business who have spent years building up their reputation, their legacy, you know, their place in the market, and all of a sudden that has gone by the wayside. And that's an incredible shame. And this is something that we feel really passionately about. And I think I can speak for all of us here, which is ensuring, you know, that SMBs have the adequate technological protection is really important to us. You know, there's enough to worry about with competition, you know, competition with big businesses, making sure that you're paying your staff, etc., etc., etc. The one thing that you don't have to be worrying about and that you shouldn't be worrying about is, when is the cyber attack going to come for you? Horrifying stat.
Yeah. Okay. Trust but verify. Okay, so we talked about, you know, your CPA, your lawyer, and people are probably thinking, well, you know, how am I supposed to know? Even if you're not technical, you know, you might think, well, anything they're going to tell me is going to be over my head. Have the conversation. You'll know.
Have a conversation.
You know, you'll know. It'll become obvious whether or not they think about this and they're putting things in place, or they're just flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, and I think if you're asking the question and you're feeling a very vague response or an avoidance of response, trust your gut on that.
That's
you
a
know,
red flag.
it's probably
Yeah.
about as much as you need to know.
Yeah.
Especially, it's most of these organizations actually have a legal compliance requirement that so many of them don't actually know, or they just decide not to follow it,
Yeah.
which has its own risks and issues.
Yeah, exactly. One of the first questions you should ask is, do they have cybersecurity insurance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If the answer is yes, then that means they've thought about it. If they've gotten cybersecurity insurance or done a renewal recently, it does. Most of the ones that I've seen have a laundry list of items that they need to have in place in order to get the insurance. So that's a great start. Okay. Asking the question about how do they protect their client data? Hopefully they've got a story there about, hey, this is what we do. Okay. Ask them, hey, if this doesn't work out down the road and we part ways, what happens to my data? What you don't want is you don't want your tax return sitting on their server 10 years from now. And if you're a company that does these things, you don't want somebody's tax return sitting on your server 10 years from now. That is just a liability for everybody involved. If you don't need it, it should be gone. It should be destroyed of. It should be destroyed properly. Okay. Then here's a good one. Have they ever experienced an incident? And if so, what happened? What was the outcome? What did they do?
And
What
I
have
would
they
say,
done since to make sure it doesn't repeat itself?
yeah, and I would say as well, don't be put off by, if you're out there searching for a new vendor for whatever reason, don't be put off by those that have had a cybersecurity incident. In all likelihood, they're the companies that have now taken proper steps to implement proper cybersecurity measures.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
They survived it, and now they have no choice but to take it seriously. Generally, they're going to be in a better place.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then another one, every organization that deals with, money and making recommendations on what to do with your money and these things, they're required to be compliant with FTC safeguards. Ask them, are you compliant with FTC safeguards?
Yeah.
Do they even know what that is, right?
Yeah, they even know they need to be.
I mean, we talk to a lot of companies that absolutely need to be, and they are like, ooh, yeah, I've heard of that, but, I'm not. And then, a big one for me is, how do they transfer data? Okay. How do you get my sensitive data from me to you and from you to me? If they're sending it, they're sending my tax return in just straight email, unencrypted, they're not for me.
Yeah, that's an immediate fail. Do not pass go.
Yeah.
Straight to jail.
Even if they let you send one to them and they didn't immediately tell you to stop doing that, it could be a better way of doing it. That's a fail.
Yeah.
They should know better, and they are legally required to know better as well. Yeah. Definitely. All right. So let's say you're part of a third-party breach. For example, at least 1 in 3 Americans were part of the United healthcare breach. So many of us had our information put out there onto the dark web. So, companies, when they are part of a breach, they generally have a way for you can verify that. First thing you want to do is find the website and confirm whether you are affected or not. Also, part of when a breach happens, they're responsible to provide you a certain length of time of free identity monitoring. Identity monitoring allows you to make sure that if someone's trying to use your identity in fraudulent ways, you'll find out about it. If you're not being given one as an option, or you want to have identity monitoring anyways, there's really great ones like Experian and LifeLock. I personally use Experian. I've used it for, I think, 12 to 14 years. It's fantastic. Monitor your credit and financial accounts. I'm sure most of you check your statements every month, but this is just very good due diligence. If you question a charge, figure out what it is, find out. You can also freeze and lock your credit. Many of you probably already do this. And it's a really great way to protect yourselves if you got a part of a breach.
And
they wouldn't
even if Yeah, and even if you haven't been part of a breach, this is a great thing to do.
Yeah.
And you can still use your open credit lines.
Yeah.
It only affects the ability to open new ones.
So updating all your passwords in MFA, this could be really such a huge chore. Every Best Buy, every Walmart, every Amazon, we all have 1,000 accounts with logons, right? If you use a password manager, they make it quite trivial to change all your passwords and make sure it's secure. Stay vigilant. If USPS sends you a text message that there's a package waiting at customs or something, USPS doesn't text you. If the IRS is calling you, the IRS doesn't call you. These are all the things you gotta, whenever you're being asked to do something, you need to question it.
Yep. Microsoft's not going to call you. Apple's not going to call you.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and the last thing is, and this one's really important, if you're ever part of a wire fraud, contact a security professional immediately, like immediately. If you contact a security professional that knows what they're doing, people like us, we can work with the FBI. And if we can catch it within the first 72 hours, and if it's domestic, there's a good chance we can get that wire transfer reversed.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right.
All right. And that sort of brings us to the end. I want to have a couple of takeaways and call to actions here. So we want to remember complacency is not the key. Do not be complacent. You are a target. We are all a target, but you can do something about it. And personal cybersecurity habits make all the difference. So if there are one or two things that you're not doing that you discovered today that you can do, implement those immediately. Start making your legacy safer. And when choosing vendors and partners, consider their cybersecurity practices as well, right? The questions that you ask are ultimately potentially going to make their business more secure, not just for you, but for themselves as well. We also have a couple of QR codes here. Every week we send out cybersecurity tips. These are tips and tricks to keep you abreast of what's going on in the market, what you can do to protect yourself. Go to our 182.com, our cybersecurity tip of the week, or go to that QR code. You can also download our much more intensive cybersecurity report full of great information in there. 182.com, new cybersecurity crisis. They are all under our resources tab on our website. Please also feel free to check out our blog, 182.com/blog. Some fun stuff in there.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to chime in there.
Mhm.
Our weekly cybersecurity tips, anybody can sign up for that. You can give that to your friends and family.
Yep, absolutely.
We welcome it. And it is a form of education in itself. So I think you can see that an overwhelming theme here is that education is pinnacle. And not everybody in friends and families have access like corporate companies have for cybersecurity awareness and training. And this is an opportunity to give them something, and it's pretty good.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to the Q&A. So I'm sorry, Forrest, did you have something to add?
I was just going to say also about that, the tip email, they're not sales pitches. They're not us trying to pitch our services. They're meant to be educational for educational purposes.
Yeah. Okay, I am going to get to this is a statement, and then I'll get to a couple of questions. Somebody saying that it was really helpful to know about the wire fraud because they had a client that lost $175,000 that way. So yeah, that's a great one to know. Within 72 hours, contact somebody like us. We can help you potentially recoup some of that. I have a couple of questions here. How have cyber-related threats changed the way both IT firms and insurance companies respond to attacks? That's a great question.
I'd say that there's a lot. What I can tell you, first of all, I think it's important to understand the landscape. This changes almost by the month, maybe faster. There's so many claims happening, and insurance companies don't like paying claims. So what's happened is, you go back 3 or 4 years ago, there was signing up for cybersecurity insurance not only was really, really cheap, it was like you almost just kind of just signed a form, barely did anything. Nowadays, they give us sometimes like 18-page documents with tons of questions,
Like a mini
very deep.
mortgage.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a mortgage contract. And they want to put everybody on the hook for committing to doing all these things that cybersecurity experts know is necessary. And what happens is, if there is any inaccuracies in those forms and there's a breach in the future, they deny a claim.
Yeah. And this isn't like the little user license agreement you get when you install Adobe. You can't just click OK. You gotta you gotta be truthful, and then you gotta follow through on those truths.
Absolutely. So the other way the cybersecurity threat has changed the way companies like ours and insurance companies deal with an attack is having forensic information is absolutely necessary. For example, there is liability as well as compliance and regulation around what data was accessed. Okay, so let's say you are a dentist's office and you were attacked. They need to know whose medical records were accessed by the hacker. Without forensics, there's really no way of knowing. And so they would have to assume every single person. Well, the liability is extremely high if every single person, for the insurance company, also for the, let's say, the dentist's office, if they have to assume every single person was compromised, it could get really expensive super fast and very, very busy. With forensics, we'd be able to know just exactly what was or was not accessed or accessed at all. And forensics, I think most people think of as something that happens after the fact, and it is, but you actually have to have the forensics technology in there before the compromise. The special technology is able to kind of track everything that happens. So should there be an event, the experts can forensically go over the logs and actually see what happened. And so anybody here that's in business, owns a business, if you were compromised and the forensics says nothing really happened, they kind of never really found anything, fantastic. You don't even have to report that to regulation. There's no customer breach notification. You don't even need to contact your insurance company at that point. So it's probably the single biggest thing that for the IT companies and insurance. Yeah.
I think one of the other things that's changed as well is, reaction times and speed. Nothing is ever 100% guaranteed, but in the event of a breach, the speed with which you can lock something down or isolate is really important. And I mean, these days it needs to happen within minutes, not hours and days, right?
Yeah. So just a couple of weeks ago, we had a client. They tried to download just a normal thing. They were trying to download, like, I think it was like a manual to their swim pump for their pool, and it had something bad in it. And our team detected it within just a couple seconds, and that computer was completely isolated. Not that it was actually infected or anything, nothing actually really happened, but because of the severity of it, the computer within like just a couple minutes was isolated. When we say isolated, it's kind of like putting a bubble around it. It couldn't do anything. It looked like it's just complete lockdown until experts could get on the machine, forensically analyze, and make sure that everything's safe before then releasing it back to the person so they could use their computer again. But these are the changes. You know, waiting till tomorrow morning or, you know, hours from now, that just doesn't work. It has to be really fast.
Yeah, I would say one of the other changes, I mean, you know, in IT and insurance, you know, that it's always been a incremental. You're learning, you know, there's the next thing, there's the next thing. This has really, the learning on cybersecurity from a technical perspective is a really steep curve.
Yeah.
And it's every day. Every day there's multiple new things.
We should probably be more stressed than we are.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, I think
Well,
most people should leave the stressing to us,
yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. Okay, I have another question here. I receive several emails weekly advising that I'm being charged for software security for my cell phone, which has never been ordered, but how can I verify?
Excellent question. Okay, so this really comes back to that, don't respond to the thing that is asking you, right? Is that a company you ever feel like you bought something from? Right? Because they can make a fake website, they can email you. You could go to the website and call them and say, did I order this? If it's the bad guys, they're gonna be like, yeah, give me your credit card number. You know, really, you really need to think back, was like, did I ever order something from there? And if you haven't, it's just spam. And don't respond in the same avenue that they contacted you.
I think also check your bank statements. Do you have
Yeah.
any pending monies that are waiting to go out?
Yeah.
Be on that quickly. I have one more question, which I think we can squeeze in. It says, do I really need multi-factor authentication for things like my subscription to the New York Times?
Absolutely.
The answer is
100%.
yes, yes, yes. Right.
Yes. Okay. So taking a step back to that example I gave, where if you're shopping for a toaster on Amazon and now you're in Instagram and all you're getting is toaster advertisements, this kind of information speaks so much about what you're doing. Okay. I'll give you I know we only got like 2 minutes. I'll give you a quick example. Imagine if your dentist was compromised. Your dentist prescribed you some antibiotics. You go to Walgreens, you pick up your antibiotics. When you get home, you get a phone call, and they say they're Walgreens, like, hey, your credit card didn't work. I need you to give me your credit card so I can run the antibiotics you took home. To the person, it's like there's just like no way that could be fraud because they'd have to know so much. Actually, if the dentist was compromised, they would know just exactly where that prescription was sent, what was sent, and who you are and how to contact you. And they could take that information and use it right against you. So yes, your websites and things like that, you just don't feel like it matter that much. Those sites know a whole lot about you. Too much.
Information is power, right?
They're all data points.
Yeah.
The more data points out there on you, the better for them.
These were great questions,
Great question.
really great questions. We are coming to the top of the hour, so we will love you and leave you. You will notice that behind all of us, we have our contact details. Please feel free to contact us if there's anything that we can do for you, anything else that you want to know. And thank you for coming. We really hope that you got something great out of this today. And stay tuned for our next webinar, which is coming soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.